Morning. Welcome to Monday.
Kicks and giggles today.
Okay. Sean,
Morning,
turn it
Commissioners.
over. Yeah.
Sean Roy, Finance Director. Today we have budget review for the Auditor's Office. That's going to include Auditors General Fund, Auditors O&M, and the Elections Fund as well. So first off, we'll start with the General Fund. Our first item is taxes. We have a budget of 11.5. Currently, year to date, we have 9.9 million. There is a 2-month accrual on here. So we've already have the January numbers. They were a little bit lower than historical. But we're hopeful for February's numbers when they come in. That'll be the December spend.
Sean might want to mention that I have some weird pass-through taxes that, they're in the auditor budget, like the PUD privilege tax and things that have nothing to do with the auditor's office. So they just have to go somewhere.
Yeah. So as Carolyn said, the PUD privilege tax, that's going to be in our intergovernmental, the middle one there. We had a budget of 2.379. We brought in 2.46. That includes the PUD privilege tax on that. That's about $2 million on that one alone. License and permits, this will be our marriage licenses, and that's right around budget as we expected. Goods and services, that's going to be a bunch of fees. And Carolyn has more information on that, I think.
Yeah, you guys have talked to me in the past about recording charges and historical document counts. So that's what I brought you today, just for kind of kicks and giggles. I know it's kind of long, but we did a little history from 2005, and Gina might be interested actually as well. We brought a little history of the total document counts of recording that come through my office. This is not revenue. These are numbers of transactions by year from 2005 to 2025. And at the very bottom, what I wanted to point out was the fee. So you can see back in 2005, our recording fee was $32, and you follow it along, it kind of goes up 40, 42, kind of a bigger jump in 2009 to 62. And then it seemed like it was $72, $73 for a good decade. But what's tied to these fee increases is a drop in the number of recordings. So while we are benefiting from seeing some higher recording revenue, I wanted to point out last year's numbers. So if you look back in 2005, the total number of documents that recorded in our office was 37,366. The total number of recorded documents that recorded last year, 18,205. Because we are currently at 350 to record a single page document. We are the highest in the entire nation at 350. And the legislature continues to look at this fee and tack on to it. But what I wanted to bring to your attention, that decline is a direct result of people avoiding the fee. So as a good example, I would say, back in the early days, 2005 to 2009, we'd have a lot of small businesses that would record liens. People like chiropractors, plumbers, things like that. Small businesses that are missing on their fee. First thing you do, go down and file a lien. Well, now to file that recording and then have to file to take it off, you're looking at $607, which is probably more than the fees that you're going to collect. So they're not recording. In addition to that, our title companies are getting pretty creative in saving money for their customers, and I understand it. I'm fiscally conservative, so I understand it. According to the law, auditors' offices are required to charge by title. So if you have a reconveyance and an agreement I'm to charge you 2 full fees for those titles, right? So you just pay double in the fee. And if you're recording an entire home sale package, you know, those fees significantly add up. So what we're finding is title companies aren't necessarily titling some of the documents, and they're sticking it, you know, in the back. It's still getting recorded, but the law, the statute specifically reads that my staff are not to read into the document, to interpret the document. So when we see a single title and they pass it, they get charged a single filing fee. So you may see some changes in the statute regarding this in the future. I think I talked to one of the commissioners about the differences between county auditors. A title company complained because a county charged the regular $300 and $350 for a document in one county, and then they did an almost identical recording in another county, and the charge was $5,800 because some counties are interpreting the statute to mean every little copy and paste is a full fee, right? And I'm assuming you can guess which county that is that charges.
I know you're being
Yes.
nice. I'll just say it's King County, obviously.
So unfortunately, the title company, rightfully so, they want to see us to be consistent, right? But as we all know, if you open that can of worms on the Hill, what your legislature is going to see is what? We're missing revenue, and they're going to come after it. And it's unfortunate, but a couple of things I wanted to bring to your attention today. You have any questions on that?
Can you file, can
Go
you
ahead,
file a
Steve.
document in a different county just to avoid the fees?
No,
For
the
county?
fees are expressly set in statute. It's interesting, though, how different counties interpret the language in statute as to what transaction equals a full fee. I've gotten a legal opinion on it. Legal is siding with me. If I'm copying and pasting a reference number off of a previously recorded document, I am not charging them a full fee. That customer has already paid a full fee to record that previously. So other legal counsels have interpreted that to mean that they charge the full fee for every document that is considered a transaction. So definition is unclear.
Okay, but in order to file or to record a sale for Cowlitz County property, it has to be filed in Cowlitz County? Or can you do it in a different county?
I think you could. Well, no, you would do it in Cowlitz County. Yeah, and you're going to pay the minimum fee that's set in statute, regardless of what county in Washington state you file in. But it could vary, like you say, depending. I think that if the property in question is in that county, I believe, I'm not sure, so I'll get back to you on this. I believe you have to file it with the title company in that county.
Okay.
2018 through to 2021, was that just when the market was?
Crazy. So regardless of the fee, people, that's another direct effect on our recording numbers. When people refinance their homes, they have to record that. And when those rates dropped
Yeah.
to all-time lows, man, we could not keep up.
Hmm.
Kicks and giggles.
Yeah, we're
Substantial
doing,
difference there.
I know.
I think right around there, we're doing some 15-year stuff at 2 something. It was crazy.
Yeah, we had a VA loan at 2.8 and we sold
Yeah.
that house. I'm kicking myself. Anything else?
So
you
would
wanna
you,
do?
the numbers falling, is it primarily liens is to be the big thing that people are now just not even filing the recording?
Yeah, anything they can avoid recording. I'll use another example. My dad lives in a small HOA. The fees are not astronomical, but when you have a property owner that doesn't pay those fees, one of the first things the HOA does is file a lien. Well, now the lien's more than the HOA fees. Plus then they have to file to remove it when they do. So I would say there's a lot of avoidance of fees going on, and our fees just keep going up.
So it's the goods and services. So I appreciate that.
I did bring some revenue if you're interested in looking directly on the licensing and recording revenue that we generate and collect. At least I thought I did. Here it is. So if you want that later, I can get that to you as well. Gives you a monthly view over the last couple of years of what we're directly bringing in for licensing fees for recording. Oh,
Yeah, now's
and
a good
then
time.
we also broke it out to how much of that fee is going to homeless housing.
So all those fees are also part of the goods and service line here. So if we want to get into that, be a great time. Let me hand that.
Sure, so I made it just for my notes only. So one side is, it says, you know, what the fee is because it's Excel that we track it in. So local homeless housing, recording revenue. So, okay, so good calculation to look at. So in 2023, if we looked at the total number of recordings, we had 17,000, well, that's not really a good one. I was thinking it was lower, 17,936. But the total revenue that we received in 2023 in recording was $2,781,145. 2024 was kind of similar, within $1,000. So it's 2.8 million. 2025 is 3.3 million. So like I say, while we're kind of tracking upwards in the number of dollars that we're collecting, that's because they're adding fees on there. The actual document counts are going down.
Eventually that's gonna stop. The seesaw we won't be collecting more dollars at some point if that continues.
It feels never ending. I think I've been saying that for the last 10 years. Surely they won't pass anything this year. And every year they surprise me. Licensing revenue is very good. You know, I would have to say we average anywhere between 55,000 to 90,000 per month in licensing revenue. And they just gave us another fee increase mid-year this year. So that is about to go up significantly as well. And that goes directly to the county, actually, that one. Those fee increases don't happen very often. What happened was the fee increases regarding licensing, whether it's gross vehicle weight tonnage, your basic tabs, everything went up. They tacked on Discovery Pass. I think they added $20 or something to a basic Discovery Pass. So they added fees everywhere. And then they said, oh, maybe we should give the county $1. And they did. But we see that it's actually impactful in county revenue. And you know that some of these recording fees directly transfer into what's called my auditor's O&M. I didn't know if Sean wanted to segue into that.
We got to get through general fund first.
I'll stop talking.
We'll come back to that one here. So those goods and services for the general fund, the vast majority of that is going to be the motor vehicle licensing fees. Miscellaneous, we had a small budget there, 12,500 at 69,150, excuse me, 100. Most of that is on OFM. We should have helped out on the budget here more. That is also all the interest earnings on sales tax for late taxes. So Carolyn's portion is not part of that.
Carolyn, I might have missed it. Did you reference how much of this goes to the homeless?
Yeah, I can give that to you. It's not a pretty copy, I'm just going to preface that. So I would have provided a little more time on creating something that looks pretty, but absolutely, this is directly what goes into homeless housing from the recording fees that we collect here in Cowlitz County alone. Did you want were you looking at a specific month as to, or yearly?
Just annually.
So it looks like 2023, it was, well, this is kind of new to me. 2023, $583,670. We're really close. 2024, $588,799. And then in 2025, it jumps up to $833,094. So not a, there were some changes to statute, basically allowing us to account for the funds differently, but unless Gina has something to share, I don't have a reason behind the increase.
Because that's
Is it the dollar
$300,000.
in that time? $1? Yeah. But that was a couple of years ago. I'm just looking at the last 3 years, if I didn't kill myself in paper. Where's the statistical one? There we go. So the $100 fee, well, that was 2023. So you're right, 2023, the recording fee was $203.50 and it went up to $303.50 in 2024. So there's the significant revenue increase. I thought it feels like it's been forever that it's been with us. It doesn't feel that recent.
And that allocation, we have no say in it.
Absolutely not. In fact, I printed this lovely spreadsheet off for Sean. Every line on this spreadsheet is in statute where certain fees for that 300 and 350 at the bottom, you get to the 300 and 350 and, $1 goes here, $2 goes there. So it's a nightmare to account for.
And we decide how that's spent through the homeless housing.
Well, it just funnels through my office into the account and then you work with Gina on what qualifies. I mean, there's some pretty tight rules on the couple of different buckets on homeless housing.
And somebody just, this is kind of a side note, but homeless housing is an oxymoron. Do we know why we call it that?
Well, I'm probably being politically incorrect. I would assume it's called unhoused now, but in statute, I believe it's the homeless housing surcharge. So that's why I always refer to it as that.
So do all those homeless housing funds stay in the county or do we, as part of it, funnel off to the cities?
So anybody online can hear, I'm gonna have Gina come up.
Yeah, so some of them stay in the county and the $100 fee we were talking about, that goes entirely to the state. And then a portion of that comes back to us through the Consolidated Homeless Grant. But there's other parts of the document recording fee that stay at the county. Carolyn's right, they're all split in 100 different ways. And so the document recording fees that are designated for housing and homeless have a percentage applied to them. So a portion even of those local doc fees, a portion stays at the county, a portion goes to the state, with the exception of that $100 fee that entirely goes to the state.
And then each of those funds that we collect for has different restrictions on what you can do with it. So Gina gets to follow all these very strict rules as to what these funds qualify for versus other homeless housing funds.
So that the increase in that grant then I just learned why we had that huge increase because we added the $100 that the state takes.
That's a portion of it, but definitely not the entirety of that increase. That portion is specific to eviction prevention, or they now call it homelessness prevention. So that $100 fee is funding that particular line in that contract of the Consolidated Homeless Grant, but there's other funding that came to us from state general funds. That contributed to the increase in that contract.
So that particular line item would be someone like the mediation center
Right,
would receive those funds.
right. Mhm.
What's interesting to me is I was unaware because there's a dollar, it's 300 and 350. There's 50 cents here, a dollar there, and it's all broken out. But I didn't realize that there is a mortgage lending fee fraud dollar that we have been collecting for many, many years. Have you ever heard of the state protecting somebody that's been affected by deed fraud? I don't know where that money goes, but I can see where, we could do a lot with some money going towards deed fraud, right? In fact, we know that counties have taken it upon themselves to try to come up with systems that alert customers and citizens in Cowlitz counties anytime there's a transaction or recording in their name or on their parcels, like a recording alert system. That would be a good use of the funds. I digress.
Carol, I don't want to break your bubble, but there's the funds that go a lot of places. We don't know where it goes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
I collect a lot of them.
Moving on to the expenses for general fund. Personnel, we're at 1.6 of the 1.735. Supplies, 42 of 43. That's going to be, office supplies. And then there was the employee recognition in there last year. For 2026, that was removed out. Services, number one is going to be our internal services there. IT is going to be the biggest one. We have about 107,000 of consultants there with Teresa Johnson. And then we have postage at 20, training at 16. So kind of seeing the breakdown of the top 4 items there. And then transfers, that's a transfer out to IT in addition to the IT service fee itself. Now we're into the auditor's O&M. So we'll talk some more on that. First one's going to be intergovernmental, 41,000 of 60. This is really the centennial document preservation. That's a once a year transfer back to the county from the state. And that's another fee that Carolyn collects.
Yeah, I may not have talked to this board specifically about this fee, but that is your money. And just like the same purpose of these funds goes into the auditor's O&M, a portion goes directly to the commissioners. And in the past, the commissioners have chosen to direct the entire amount to Laserfish. Optional. I don't know if you want to continue to do that, but that's a set amount of funds that you can do what you want within the parameters, which is scanning documents, digitizing documents, basically restoring and retaining historic documents. It directly applies to Laserfish, so I think that was the easy transfer, but if you need to find a creative solution, here's a set of funds for you.
Are you talking about taking hard copies and scanning them into Laserfish?
Absolutely. Digitizing documents is preserving historic documents.
And as far as the county is concerned, how far along are we in that endeavor? Do we still have boxes and boxes of documents that need to be scanned in, or can we?
That would be dependent on the department that you ask. So when I became auditor, I inherited boxes and boxes, and we are through all of ours in elections, and we're almost through all of my recording because, as you know, all of my records went to the state in 2020 during COVID when we remodeled elections. So I made kind of a promise to my constituents that I would digitize those records and make them available online. So they exist at state archives right now. We're in contract with state archives to scan those, but I'm using my auditor O&M funds for that project. Not your funds can be used for the same exact purpose, but
What happens to the hard copies after you scan them?
you can, well, it depends. You have to look at the disposal record. Where's Bailey? She would have scolded me. I was going to say toss and Bailey would have come after me. So depending on the disposal record for the particular document, you can either surrender it to archives or it can be retained for the appropriate retainage period or be disposed of.
Currently, though, with our system, and you may or may not know this, but with our system, we're not creating hard copies that we have to digitize. Everything's already digitally recorded, correct?
Well, again, I don't know the operations. We're very siloed in the county, and I can't speak to how other departments operate. I can tell you in the auditor's office, we're making every effort to go paperless. I would love for us to finally go paperless financially at some point. That's a much, much harder task than my other departments, but I'll use an example like recording. When somebody comes in to record a document, we scan it in right at the time and hand it back to them. We don't want any records. And if they mail it in, we mail it back to them. I don't want to hold on and store records. It's in laserfish, which is considered permanent retention. I don't want any other obligations beyond that.
So at this point, we've been paying to preserve the documents that from 15 years ago or whatever the accumulation of those files is to get them onto Laserfish. We will get to a point to where that will be done and we no longer have to do that.
In the auditor's office, yes. Again, I can't speak to other departments, whether they've chosen to digitize. That would be a conversation between commissioners and other departments. I think that everybody's making that move, but I am not sure.
The court system's working on it, but the court, everything has to be submitted on certain forms and everything is in writing inside the courtroom. But once it comes out of the courtroom, then yeah, they're trying to digitize it, but they've got tons of stuff on a daily basis that keeps adding up because of every court. You get an attorney in there. Now he's got to provide copies of his documentation to everybody. But one of those copies has to be digitized ultimately.
And
Just
that's
wondering-
actually a staffing issue. So
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering is if I know there are companies that hire third-party vendors to come in and digitize all of their documents and then it's done. You know, you pay the fee and then you're caught up and moving forward with all of your documents from that point moving forward are already digitized and recorded that way.
yes, currently that's what I'm doing. I'm in contract with Washington State Archives, and I've offset the cost. I won 2 grant cycles, both at $50,000. So I brought in $100,000 towards that project to offset the cost, which was a nice surprise. My only complaint, Washington State Archives does wonderful, wonderful work. They are indexing in addition to scanning, which is very important. It ties information to a document like your deed. It would let you know, the address, the grantors, grantees, because people don't know what an AFN number is. So if you can't find a document, it's not very useful, right? So it gives you those search terms to find documents, but they were short-staffed for a long time and they are taking much longer than I anticipated. But in other departments, like my elections department, I just hired temporary staff to do that. Scanning and storing is not a difficult task. setting parameters on accuracy and monitoring the process, there's the difficulty.
And so as kind of Carolyn said, each one of these revenue sources in the O&M have different restrictions associated with them and can be used for different things. In the goods and services line, we also have, 79,000 of income against the 45 budget. A mix of auditors filing and recording fees and auditors historic doc surcharge as well. So, and then in the miscellaneous, we're a little over budget on that one for interest earnings of 43,500 currently.
The fund itself has a higher balance. Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I don't mean to take up all of your time,
That's
but
on
I
the next
don't get all
page.
three commissioners at the same time very often. So we have been saving our money for a very long time. The intent, the legislature created the O&M fund specifically with the sole purpose of purchasing county recording system softwares and maintaining them. And we currently have been with the same vendor since 2006. Our current technology is antiquated. Our current vendor has grown a little big for their britches. They are now providing software solutions to county clerks, to treasurers, to assessors. And over the last decade, we have seen a serious decline in customer service, getting issues taken care of and things like that. So when we had that meeting and the S-bar form came out, I was thinking, oh, this is a perfect opportunity for me to fill out this S-bar and get that started because I've been talking with IT. We have sufficient balance and it would be appropriate now to start looking at newer technology for recording, technology that creates efficiencies that save staff time and also provide the opportunity for online services, which we don't have right now with our antiquated software. So that could be coming your way soon.
Well, and the reason I asked you the questions about the Laserfish and the recording is because to your comment that previously it had just been put to Laserfish, and I think we should evaluate if that is the best use of those funds at this point in time. And what we can do to run more efficiently if we have this money that is specifically for those purposes.
Can we go to the next slide? So as Carolyn said, there's a chunk of change in here, about a little shy of 1.3. You can see on the services column that it's been less every year, kind of referring back to what Carolyn talked about on software, trying to get there. Currently, the only funding that's coming out here is professional contract with Washington State for documents, and then her software maintenance fees, about 47,000. Not a lot of personnel, not a lot of supplies, and not a lot of capital.
So I'll speak to that too. In other counties, you might see personnel charged because this fund would pay for recording staff. But we kind of hobbled ourselves in Cowlitz County when we combined the recording and the licensing departments. I can't differentiate the time the staff spend on recording because it's literally just one transaction after another, back and forth. But I did want to bring it to your attention that, we're in kind of historic times where we're looking to get creative with our funding, and I could potentially allocate one staff member to recording only, but that would mean I have to take them away from licensing, right? I would have to dedicate one staff member only to recording, kind of going back to those historic times before we merged the two departments. But those are all conversations that I'd like to start having with the board on future budget savings, in addition to new software.
So that wraps up the general fund and special revenue fund. On next is elections. Thank you, Kelly. So if we look at this slide, there's not a lot in 2025. The only one currently populated is other financing sources, and that's going to be the general fund's contribution to elections for the 2025 fiscal year. Me and Carolyn had some conversations on this one because I was a little surprised, and I think she can give us a better understanding of how elections works.
Yeah, elections, we appear to be poor as paupers right now. And you might be looking at our budget like, what in the heck is going on? So we bill annually, and by law, elections has to capture the entire year and allocate those charges to two different things, either election costs, everything that contributed to an election cost, or the remaining goes to voter registration, everything that's contributing to voter registration. So it takes a while to calculate 13th month expenses as those late invoices come in, but we did get all of those allocated, and we have a total of $577,474 in election costs for 2025. And maintenance costs, we have $285,308 coming in for a total revenue of $862,782. So we will be sitting much prettier here in a few months and look a little more normal.
And of course, those will all get accrued back into 25, so they won't show in 26, and we won't see them on our next quarter here, but we just want to have that conversation. Expense-wise, we have personnel, 5 positions. As we look between fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25, we do see a significant difference. We did have a new position come online at the end of 24. That's why the position counts are the same, and some empty time in there for one of our spots. Supplies, everything elections related between office supplies, election services. I don't know what Clear Ballot Group is, but I'm sure that's related to elections.
Tabulation system. That's our software.
And then, of course, services, number one service again is in internal services. IT is about half of that. We also have quite a bit of risk and other items associated with this one. And then repo graphics for 94, direct mail at 34, and US Post Office at another 30. So really those services are all elections related, as they should be.
Huge costs for services in elections, paper, ballot printing, mailing, postage. It's really tremendous. I can tell you that every local voters pamphlet that we produce is roughly around $30,000. That's just one charge in one election. So costs are crazy.
Do your costs fluctuate much on off year to presidential year election?
Yeah, they will fluctuate a lot, actually, depending on the number of elections. If you think about it, the more elections that we have, staff time is dedicated to elections. So we build those jurisdictions that participated in the elections. So kind of saves the county and the cities on, there's much, much less time being performed on the regular voter registration maintenance and precincting and things like that. So for an example, 2024, when you have a presidential primary, that the entire bill for that election goes to the state. Love presidential primary. It's about a $275,000 bill that the state gets to pay for. But in an odd year, there have been times, they're very, very rare, but there have been times when we have not had a spring election all year. So that leaves us with just a primary, which in an odd year is not typically, not always countywide. And that would mean a lot of costs are left. So our costs shift, right, to maintenance, voter registration maintenance rather than election costs. And it's a really difficult budget to predict because I can't predict. We'll use the city of Longview as an example. They're going to run a couple of really big issues this coming year. I could never have predicted that during our budget timeline. We either have them or we don't.
We'll go on to the elections reserve next. Once again, no revenue, so
All of the election reserve charges essentially equate to 15% of all of the charges that we bill out. So according to law, whatever our costs are, we are allowed to charge a 15% overhead fee that goes into a restricted fund only to purchase, maintain, and then upgrade election system software, which is very, very expensive. We typically, I would say we're typically on somewhere around a 10-year schedule on elections, much more progressive than say like recording, because we're 25 years plus in our recording system, but you have to stay on the move in elections, ready to pivot for new legislation.
15% of the individual expense or the overall expense?
Overall. So we calculate all of our expenses for the entire year, voter registration and election costs. And according to law, we can charge a 15% overhead that goes into this fund.
and so on the next slide, we can see where they spent it this year. And I believe
If
you have.
they,
Oh, go ahead.
if this ranked choice voting moves ahead, is our software able to handle it? My guess is no.
No.
And do you have any idea on the cost of bringing that up?
I think I've talked to you guys or one of you about this before. I can tell you that King County has paved the way for us, actually. Their charter governing board adopted ranked choice voting, and they paid the price tag of $1 million, that county alone, to get software that was capable of processing ranked choice voting. $1 million. So for a county our size, it's typically based on voter registration. So I'd say a fraction of that cost, but you're still probably looking at a good $250 or more. And then that's not even counting staff time. That's just the software to do the job. The one thing we have going for us is that the costs are known, right? So with these ranked choice voting bills that are on the Hill, they have a significant fiscal note attached. Will they pass? I can never call it. I would think they wouldn't, but could be surprised.
Yeah.
The cost of things has never been an issue in Olympia.
I know, wishful thinking on my part.
I don't see that column.
And so the current cash balance of this fund is a little less than $500,000 currently.
Which is about right where we should be since our clear ballot software, I want to say we made the move in 2019, 2020. So yeah, we're about halfway to kind of that next big conversion, and we save until we're in need of replacement technology.
And that's what we have for slides today. Is there any additional questions? I know we went through a lot already.
And I want to go back to the laserfish thing. In your conversations with IT, have you guys talked about the fact that the current program that we have with laserfish is we're driving it in first gear when there's 5 gears, and that is a possibility to just upgrade that program to get some of the other services that it offers so that we run more efficiently. Does that affect your department with those? Can we use those O&M funds for that type stuff?
If it directly relates to preserving historic documents, I mean, you have to read the statute to see, where it falls in line. It's for acquiring software, so I would assume that would apply.
And as we look at the funding sources, the Centennial Document Preservation Fee may have different restrictions than the, historic document surcharge.
They're very, very similar.
Mm.
So my O&M for my documents and the amount that you collect, they're very similar, the requirements and statute. Preserving historic documents, whether it's software, staffing, very similar.
Thank you.
We're under time still. Perfect.
I'm under time
didn't
even
even
with
use
all
full
this
hour.
paperwork.
Thank you, commissioners.
Well, I did have one more thing just for you guys. I counted, the legislative session is in full swing.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to bring to your attention what's happening in auditors' offices, the total number of bills that are affecting each of my divisions, and kind of a new change. Currently, we're monitoring 62 bills in elections, which is typical, horrible, but typical. Finance, we have 3. I wish they were all like that. Licensing has 19, and you can guess that all of those are some way to find a fee. You should know that there's a lot coming down the pike with the legislature on requirements for my staff. I don't know if you're following it. They want my staff, when you come in to renew your tabs, they want me to check if you have insurance and not renew your tabs if you don't have insurance. They're creating bills that if your tabs are expired, the penalty is much, much higher. They are really coming after people that are avoiding that fee. Just so you know, that's like the overwhelming of those 19 bills. It's all about fees. But the new one that I wanted to bring to your attention, recording is typically like finance. Nobody ever comes after recording other than surcharges for homeless housing recently. We have 29 bills currently. And I will tell you that there is some crazy stuff going on regarding privacy of recorded documents. My statute is very specific that my entire job in that department is to make those documents public and available to the public for display. Well, now we've got other affiliates, interests, coming to make those private for people that are suffering harassment. And I sympathize with that. First, it directly conflicts with my statutory obligation. And second, my software system is completely antiquated and incapable of meeting the current demands if those were to pass in this year's legislature. Just letting you know, a lot going on. So those bills have a significant fiscal note as well. I cannot predict what the legislature will do with them.
The fines that you were talking about for people not renewing their tabs. There's a movement of people that they're sticking it to the state by not renewing their tabs, just like people not, taking any of their federal tax out so that the government doesn't collect that tax. When they increase that fine, does that fine go to the county? Because it's offered,
Sure.
it's given by the police officer, right? I mean, the fine is imposed by the police officer pulling them over, whether it's a deputy or a city police. Where does that fine go? Do you know?
So in the case of pulling them over, I haven't digested that entire bill to know if the fine increased or the penalty. I'm wondering if it isn't the penalty itself, making it more a higher penalty, not felony level, obviously, but the higher the penalty. But
When they go to renew, right? There's a penalty imposed
for
when they
not
go to- yeah.
for not renewing. If you get pulled over and your tabs are expired, yes.
But so they're going to get issued a citation. And then when they go to renew after that citation, is there a penalty assessed at that point also?
Not yet. I just can't wait to see what comes down the pike from DOL this next year. The 2025 was historic. I I had so many fee increases. We did presentations with DOL in advance of the fees coming out. And normally I would send a letter to constituents that had concerns. I'd write something up so that if somebody working at my front counter, somebody who's really upset about the fees, it's very common. I want them to know what's happening and who they can contact to talk to about it, right? There were so many fees, I couldn't have possibly listed them. I listed maybe the top 5, but I'm telling you, the fees were more in the range of 45 additional fees last year. They are coming for us. That and also sales tax. That's a new mechanism for taxes. They are, what would you call it, realigning the definition of sales tax to expand it on different items that historically we've never paid sales tax on.
Precious metals, services.
Yeah, absolutely. They're coming for us. That's the underlying theme.
Right now, doesn't law enforcement, if they pull you over, they have the ability to see if you have insurance or not.
I would assume so.
Yeah, they do.
So law enforcement can see it when they pull me over and I just give them my driver's license. That's something they are asking you to be able to monitor now? Or
What they're
would-
saying
would it-
is that they believe that the statistic is 20% of Washingtonians don't have insurance.
20%?
20%. I don't know where the statistic came from, whether it's valid or not. I have no idea. All I'm saying is that in the bill, it says 20% of Washingtonians are driving without insurance. And they're coming for you, right? And they're looking for any mechanism in which to do that, whether it's my office or law enforcement. And I don't think they're getting done what they want to get done with law enforcement. So
How many insurance companies sponsored that bill? Jeez. Okay. Thank you.
I feel like I was the bearer of bad news. Bad news, bad news, bad news.
It's all good information. Thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Patrick,
Morning. Good morning. I'm going to be fairly brief. I've got a 10 o'clock board meeting, but that's fine. We'll run. They're understandable. I'm here on the agenda item for the change order for Garlock Creek. This is just the very end of the project and we're truing up some of the numbers. A few things, we ended up digging one of the pilings deeper just to hit bedrock, ran into some survey stuff just to get the channel in the right shape, that kind of stuff. Ends up being 11,000 on a $2 million project, just about 0.5%. This is be the last thing before we close the project.
that's probably actually not bad for working in the water and the stuff you had to deal with out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I would like to compliment our construction manager and inspector. Some projects go smoothly, some projects have a few things, and so they worked with the contractor to make sure this one went as smoothly as possible.
Well, and they worked really well with the one neighbor that would
Yep.
give me a call. The last call I got, they even replaced his window, so
Good to
it
hear.
was all good, yeah. Okay,
Any questions on this? Susan will be back tomorrow in the audience, so she can ask her in more in depth if you have, but I'm happy to answer what I can. Thank you.
thank you. We got. Do you know if we have Katrina's on? Okay.
Good morning.
Morning,
Good morning.
Katrina.
Good morning. I have quite a few things on the sheriff's agenda. We have our warehouser contract on for 2026. That we have patrols that go throughout the year that we help patrol that area. So that's an updated contract. The fees are exactly the same because our deputies haven't settled their contract for the billable hours on there. So there's no other changes on that one. Do you have any questions on it?
What contract was that again?
It's our warehouser contract for patrols.
Yeah.
Okay, then we have a number of the shooting range ones that have to be done every year. I don't have all of them, but I wanted to put on the consent agenda the ones we have. So we have Corrections Department, Longview Police, Kelso Police, Kalama Police, and Washington Fish and Wildlife that have signed all of their agreements for us for this year. There'll be a number of other ones still coming.
Yeah. And you said these are yearly agreements you have to do?
Yes, they're once a year.
Okay.
So the ones that
And
are,
then,
do we have all those? Is that the one?
yeah, we still have a few more coming in. I don't see Castle Rock or the Tribe or Bonneville Power in there. I don't see Woodland Police yet. So they should be here any day. And then I'll put those on there too.
And
Okay.
Katrina, is that just for like calling for backup from those?
This is for them to use our range to go up and shoot at our range for training and, you know, all the safety precautions and liabilities that go along with that. We have to update them every year. Any questions on those? It's the same as last year on those. And then the last thing is kind of interesting. It's a personal service agreement that was with Incident Management for $8,000 for the Department of Emergency Management. I put that on in October and thought it went all the way through. It looks like Brad was supposed to check off that he approved it before it pushed to you, and it never went through. It's already signed by Brad. It's $8,000 for some services that Ernie Schnabel provided to the DEM last year, but I found it just floating in the agenda quick that never got pushed all the way through. So I pushed it through. So it's basically just for public record. It's already signed by the sheriff and the services are done. But I don't know why it just got held up in agenda quick and it didn't notify us that it was held up.
Okay.
And that's all I have today.
So whatever we contracted for has been completed.
Yes, in 2025. And I just wanted, anytime the sheriff has the authority to sign, I still put them on the consent agenda so we have it on public record for you to have and anybody else that wants to see. And that's what this one was, but I don't know why it didn't go through. And I wasn't there that day to see if it went through on the meeting. So when I went in to enter these others, I found it floating in there. I apologize for that.
Good catch.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No, I think you're good. Appreciate you coming on.
Of course. You guys have a good day.
Thank you.
Okay.
You too.
Thank you.
Gina James, Health and Human Services. We just have one item on the agenda tomorrow. This is sort of the last of our contracts that were slated that kind of expired the end of December. So it's our contract with Emergency Support Shelter. It supports their shelter operations. This is up to $150,000. We still have included in there a $50,000 match component that they've been able to meet each year that we've had that in here. So the county had decided to do a up to 50,000 match of private donations that came to Emergency Support Shelter.
So we guarantee 100,000 that we're going to send them. And then if they, depending on what they match, they get another 50 and they've always
Right.
been able to match, which is
Yeah.
good, actually.
Yeah. Yep. Last year, they served about 150 individuals through shelter. Over half of those were children. I think they will be here tomorrow as well if there's some more detailed questions about their shelter.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that takes care of that. You said Jessica had nothing. We have no human resource requests. Okay. We'll run through volunteer boards and committees. Can I have can I start this with just kind of a quick general conversation? And I'm not really going to get into names or committees, but just how we want to handle when we have a committee that fosters a complaint for actions. These committees are advisory. They sit there at our leisure. How far do we want to, take that? We have the ability on a lot of these ad hoc advisory committees, if we find the action objectionable, that we can replace an individual, you can replace the whole board. Our expectations of them in our policy is they pretty much follow OPMA, even if they're not required to do OPMA. We have some expectations. Normally in a prior life, I would say you have a sit down and say, this is the action, this is our expectations. It needs to be corrected. If it doesn't get corrected, then we make a change. But I'm just kind of getting a general feel of how you think we should handle some of those. They are rare, which is good.
Do all the boards have like bylaws and they basically follow rules of order
I think that some of them have their own bylaws, and then we have procedure or policy that kind of outlines what we expect from these committees. Like, even though if OPMA isn't required, we ask you to follow it, that type of stuff.
I don't think there's anything wrong with sitting down with an offender and having a conversation, like you said. I think that's a good first step.
I think that'd be a good first step, and if it doesn't correct from there, we take something else.
Yeah.
Okay,
And understand what's going on and then work from there.
okay. Okay. We will do that. We have some here. Banking Improvement District, is this just a banking district? I see Patrick had to, is that you?
It is banking improvement district number 1.
Yes, are you
That
Casey?
would be-
Okay,
Good morning. Question about it, or- What I'm asking for? Did you have a question about it, or do you want me to
Is-
just explain what it
is
is?
it it's a position, you're new to the committee, I see. Is it a position that needs to be filled that somebody?
So I'm the district manager for CDID number 1.
Okay,
I have a 9-person committee.
I got you.
3 members are appointed by the commissioners, 3 members by the city of Longview, and 3 members by the district. So I had a vacancy when Kristen Gaines left our committee, and that was one of the positions that were appointed by the county. And Casey Kalau, who is the superintendent of operations at the Cowlitz PUD, has offered to join our committee, and he would take Kristen's spot.
Okay,
So that's what's.
Have you had a chance to talk with Casey? You're good with that? you guys
Oh,
on board
absolutely.
with
I
that?
actually had recommended him to the county and reached out to him. I've worked with him in a prior life, so to speak. And he's, very familiar. We also like to partner with several, we're small, so we partner with various agencies. And the PUD is one of those that we'd like to strengthen that relationship with. So yeah, he would be a welcome person to our committee.
I'm
Yeah.
good.
I know Casey.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Jennifer, you got an opening, huh? Oh, this is a renewal for Ben, huh?
Yeah.
Okay,
Good morning, Jennifer Mendoza with the Cowlitz County Noxious Weed Control Board. We have one expiring term on our board for the noxious weed control in Cowlitz County. Per the RCWs for the weed laws, the process is such that the weed board posts the application and provides public notice that there's an expiring term. We accept the applications. The weed board holds a hearing to review all applications that are received. And then the weed board makes a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. So for this term, we've received a total of 1 applications, and that was from Ben Thomas Jr. The weed board does recommend that the Board of Commissioners appoints Mr. Thomas to our weed board for another term. In terms of timelines, there is a 60-day requirement once we have provided the recommendation that the Board of Commissioners makes the appointment. So there's a little bit of time on that. And the term would start March 1st and be a 4-year term.
Jennifer, he was a unanimous decision for your board.
Correct.
Granted, he was also the only one.
Correct.
But can you explain the signatures to me? Is that something that, because we've never had a board that has
Yes,
signatures. Is that-
so it's stemming from the weed laws. Per the RCWs, the way that the weed board appointments used to work, there used to be way back when some sort of a voting or a public vote. But in lieu of that, they implemented the 10 signature requirement. So in order for somebody to submit an application to our board, they need to receive 10 signatures from members in their area that they're representing.
Voting members?
Voting, yes, registered voters. So they have to be a registered voter. So we did verify that there are 10 signatures on there that are registered to vote. So that is probably unique to our weed board. As you know, we're very unique. We are a regulatory board, not just advisory. We have all kinds of unique things about us, and that is one of them. We must receive 10 signatures in support of their application.
Well, I will just tell you that on the many boards that I sit on, you run yours very well.
Thank
Do a
you.
good job.
Ben's always done a good job on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm good, yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thanks, Jennifer. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Veterans.
Okay, so I think we have 1 opening on the Veterans Advisory Board. I think that we received 2 applications recently. I don't know either of the individuals, but one applicant, Charles, came to the last meeting. I think you got a chance to meet Commissioner Farrell while he was there. So I had an opportunity to chat with him a little bit at that meeting. Other than that, I don't know either of the individuals.
Yeah, I know Mike. Don't know the other gentleman, but
Charles was the gentleman sitting in front of me. that I
Yes.
Spent some time after the meeting with.
Yep.
Yeah. Seems to be very knowledgeable, very concerned, and wants to be active.
Yep.
What's your take on Mike, Rick?
I know Mike, awesome individual.
I'm getting the sense that from other people that both these people are good.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll add about Charles is he is active with the Veteran Service Center, which I think is helpful on the advisory board to have that perspective from one of the organizations who is also helping with the applications and processing that piece of it. So when Judge Stonier stepped down, it kind of
Yeah, we
left
really
that.
lost that connection when the judge stepped down.
Yeah, so I think that particular piece is helpful to have on the advisory board.
Yeah, I noticed that he has 3 different organizations he's volunteering for.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I'd be good with both, but I think that connection is kind of important.
I'm good with Charles.
I mean, are you guys,
I agree.
Yeah, I'm good.
Charles?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
PFD, this is just, Joan is the current chair of that committee. I think they have a group that's coming up in February. She must be coming up in February. And she's just looking for recommitment. She's one of them.
There's three.
Hi, Kim. We're just talking about Joan. She's current chair and she's just up for reappointment. Well, I'd sit there and listen to her. I think she does a great job. I just would, you probably interact with them more than I do, but.
Yeah, she's been a long time member. And did you have the new application also?
It's not sitting here. You're talking to, we had Mark and it sounds like I haven't seen a letter, but it sounds like he's saying he's not feeling comfortable doing it. He feels like it's a conflict. And I saw we had a application from a guy that I actually used to work with. He is our CFO. And then I think he took my role when I left. But I have a question to your board, because he lives in Clark County.
Correct. So we're going to check residency requirements and I have
Yeah.
not had a chance.
So we don't have it here until
Okay.
we hear some of that.
Okay. So just the reappointment of Joan is what you're discussing.
Yeah,
And she's been she is the chair currently.
yeah. I don't have any problems with Jones. He does well. Good to go. Okay.
Thanks, Kim.
Good morning, commissioners. So as you are well aware, we gave notice and provided notice to the risk pool with a 6-month window for departure. At that time, we had been working with a broker to seek out a proposal. Since then, or even prior to us presenting to risk management, presenting that, I did seek out additional brokerage services with a lot of hesitation, just because of the amount of inconsistency as far as what a proposal will be today versus what it will be. So I just wanted to talk through some of that with you so that you're aware of if we want to pull to complete an RFP. So year over year with the risk pool, we saw double-digit increases for the past 2 to 3 years, which prompted us, risk management, to go out and seek proposals, knowing that it wasn't financially feasible for us to stay with the risk pool. So we sought out a quote from Alliant. We spent several hours, days gathering data. A lot of that data is now expired data, or it's old data, which we can pull again to be able to get a more up-to-date and accurate proposal. A reminder, we have 6 months till the end of June to either stay with the risk pool or retract our notice to leave the risk pool. When it comes to getting a municipality insurance brokerage quote, there's a lot of market things that have to do with insurance brokerage market. For a county and a public entity, it's a very small and specialized window of opportunity. There are very few firms that have the experience or the capacity to serve us as a municipality due to the complexity of our insurance requirements. There is a county scale claims coordination that has to do with being able to manage a TPA as well in partnership with that brokerage to be able to handle our liability claims as well. So we did find one, which was Alliant, and then we also held 2 meetings to look for a TPA that could look at our liability claims and help us manage in coordination with Alliant Brokerage Services. In those 2 meetings, we did find one that was a standout that really met our Cowlitz County culture. I felt they'd be a great partner to us, kind of how we partnered with the risk pool on several entities in regards to liability claims, pre-defense claims, and things like that. If we go out for an RFP, the potential pool is very slim. Based on market conditions, there's only a few firms that would most likely respond just due to the size of our county and the amount of information and work that is involved in that. If we do an RFP, I would prefer that we do one closer to March or April so that it's real live data information. So that when we get back the numbers, we're able to compare apples to apples and not, we think this will be what your insurance, we need hard data. When we did that with Alliant, I think the last time we checked, we were over $1 million in savings, or very close to that, if I recall, Commissioner Rader.
Yeah.
And every time I've met with Alliant to give them updated data or additional data in regards to all of the policies that we hold, pollution policies, excess workers' comp, volunteer, all of those things, because it's live data, they're able to get me very real-time quotes so that when we go live in January of 2027, it is what it is versus we're throwing spaghetti on the wall and hoping that it sticks with a lot of these brokerage services. So if we go out for an RFP, I'd prefer we do it March, April, because we only have till the end of June to retract if we wanted to stay with the risk pool. To me, it's not financially feasible with the double digits and the projections that are for 2027's numbers. If we were to get an RFP and do it like today, they would be speculative numbers. We want to make sure that we have broker reliancy on our proposal, commitments, and transitions, as well as looking at the premium volumes that it's justified for our scope of work that we would be issuing in the RFP. I would hope for at least 1 to 2 responses. I will say when we were in this kind of knowledge-seeking phase, I reached out. There's another pool. It's called the risk group. It's like the risk pool, but it's a risk group. It's on a much smaller scale for smaller counties and school districts. I spent a lot of time with them seeking to understand what their pool was like, what their premiums were like, and they would love to quote us. They would love to put a bid and a proposal in. My fear in my research is that we would be jumping from one frying pan to the other when it comes to sustainability, and will they still be around 2 years from now? And do we want to go through this process of being with a pool, or do we go with a brokerage that we've built a relationship with that can look at us as a client and always want to save us more money? And that ultimately that's the goal. The risk group, I worry about their sustainability and to be able to handle with all of the sexual abuse claims. I think the risk group and the risk pool are in that same pool of unknowns with the amount of money that can be won or lost in these sexual abuse claims. Cowlitz County is up to 5, 4 with attorneys. And so we want to make sure we're protecting our assets in the long run. And right now, until they put statutes and mandates on what those dollar amounts look, and I know it's a legislative bill that is up, until that is made more concrete, it's just very unknown. It could be $200,000 or it could be $2 million. And so I think that's where the uncertainty lies with a lot of these brokers. What else? So to kind of explain what Alliant has really helped us partner with, or that any broker would need to, we'd have to have a TPA for claims coordination, relationship management, coverage risk analysis, and a transitioning plan. Like I said, there's a limited amount of brokers that will do that, but they're out there. We just would want them to come forth with a proposal if we were to put out an RFP. I'm actively working with our current broker to maintain coverage stability, monitor market conditions, ensure that we're fiscally responsible and disciplined, also preparing the county for the potential 2027 transition. This approach allows the county to avoid a symbolic or low-risk RFP or low-responsive RFP and preserve our staff capacity. If we were to enter the market right now, the proposals, again, would not be live numbers until we get closer to the end of the year. That's pretty much it. I think that's it. I know that Doug has some concerns with the transition to just one, brokerage. So if he's on the phone or if he's live.
He's in the back room.
Oh,
You're back
sorry,
room.
Doug. I didn't even see you, Doug. I'm so sorry. Did you want to speak on anything? You guys.
I just, for clarification purposes, the reason that the numbers wouldn't be live and the reason that the numbers that we are getting from Alliant are real time is we sent a letter allowing the risk pool to give our real time numbers to Alliant so that they could update those quotes.
Correct.
And last I heard, they saved us almost an additional $300,000 based on the new numbers that they got.
Correct.
So if we went to an RFP, the reason that the numbers wouldn't be real time is because we haven't signed that letter with them. They're just giving us a quote based on, I don't know, previous experience factors that they can look up.
Right. Last year's data.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing is that Alliant, they cover the state of Washington. The state does business with Alliant. That is who they use as their broker for their insurance. What I agree with your statement with regards from going from one frying pan to another with the risk pool, because they all have the same problem in that they have carriers that are leaving their insurance ladder and more of that liability is now being placed on the counties. So we now, as of the last meeting, I believe, we have 3 rungs in our insurance ladder that we are now covering.
Correct.
0 to 3 million, and then I believe it's 5 to 7 million that the insurance pool, that the risk pool is now covering. So we've increased our liability because insurers are not wanting to do business in the state of Washington.
Correct.
That's why we're not having many people that would respond to an RFP because
We're just not an appealing client.
exactly. We're not appealing state.
State. Better.
Yeah, and so that's another reason to really consider not just the 43% increase in our premium that we're going to get this year and that we're going to get again next year. It's the fact that the risk pool itself is having to increase its liability exposure because there are no domestic carriers that are willing to step into those spots.
Correct. Forcing us to take on that exposure.
Exactly. And unless something is done legislatively, I don't know how that's going to continue. We were on a conference call with the risk pool and they specifically told us point blank, something has to change or we will not make it. So
Right.
I think it's good that we're being proactive moving forward with whatever we can and we get the information up front, whatever options are available to us so that when it comes time to make that decision, we can make it well informed with our eyes wide open moving forward.
Correct.
So I think the option, as I understand this, is it's a service agreement. If we like Alliance, we can negotiate with them and do that. Or I think that I'm pretty sure Doug would have the suggestion that he'd rather see us do an RFP if we can get it done in a timely manner. Because I agree. I think we have to move. I'm not a big fan of the pools for the reasons Commissioner stated, but also the people that are on boards of those pools, they're other commissioners and they change over time and they don't have the background knowledge or the breadth of knowledge that strictly insurance people have. And that's not a poke at them. It's just reality. It's what it is.
Right. Insurance is a service request. This is a policy and a fiduciary timing, not a statutory requirement.
So how would we, if we went to an RFP, kind of piggyback on Commissioner Rader's, if we wanted to get apples to apples quotes, how do we, somebody expresses an interest, so we give them a letter to.
Have to do that.
We'd have to give each
To
individual.
release the information?
Correct. And then they'd partner with the risk pool to give that information, which is what we gave to Alliant.
What's the typical time frame for them to accomplish that? Once they get the letter?
It took us, I think, 3 months. That's why I was thinking March, if we started an RFP process. It was about 2 to 3 months from start to finish, from when they gathered the data and then presented to us as a team.
Does the primary cause of this, is the instability of this whole system based on the insurance pools, or is it based on our legislature?
Legislature.
Legislature.
Yeah, that would be.
When
my
there's no
guess.
cap, when there's no ceiling, there's no ceiling.
And you're right, there's some bills into trying to address that, but who knows if they'll.
It could take a
You know,
year, 3 years,
they
5
get-
years. We're living in the now fiscal budget.
Get 3,000-4,000 bills a year, so.
And in all the conversations that I've been a part of and involved in with regards to this, with the risk pool and Alliant and third-party administrators, the key component to really making this a successful transition for us is that TPA, and making sure that we select the right TPA for our needs and for what we want. And in all those phone calls that we've had and Zoom calls with those people, the one that we like, I really do think is very capable, and it will do a good job. I mean, just based on their experience and their history and the references and everything that they brought to the table, I feel good with that company.
I do too. I mean, there's going to be obvious growing pains because we don't know what we don't know. We've only been with the risk pool. We don't know anything different. So it'll be a day by day discovery, but I'm confident with the leadership that we'll be able to handle it.
So should we proceed with the?
So do you want me to do do you want me to do a call for RFPs, or would you like me to proceed with Alliant?
So I will add this. Alliant is the broker. They're not the insurer themselves.
No.
If we go to a different broker, they're going to use the same insurers because there's only so many of them in the state.
There's just a handful, probably.
So the difference really is going to be the way that the broker handles our.
So what you're doing is deciding which broker fits you best.
Right.
I got you.
And from a customer service perspective, and I put a lot of weight in that because I need open lines of communication when it comes to policies and hiccups, liability claims. Alliant has been stellar. They've been great at communication. We will now start, if this is how we move forward, we'll start meeting weekly or bi-weekly to ensure a smooth transition with all policies.
We're not required to do an RFP.
No, we're not.
Okay.
I see the benefits to an RFP. I just don't know that in this situation, the insurers are going to be the insurers that we have in the state. There's
Correct.
no.
When I sought out last year, other than the pool, or excuse me, the group, I couldn't get phone calls back. So you can call big commercial insurance brokerage companies, but when you mention municipality, it's like, wow, that's a lot of work. And you just have to have someone that's willing to put in the work, the time, the energy, and that also has the FTE to support our needs, like an organization that has people that specialize, brokers within their organization that specialize in the specialized needs that we have.
Yeah, it's a specialized field, right?
Very.
And Commissioner Rader, you said this broker handles the state of Washington?
Yeah. Which there's two things that I really like about Alliant and the TPA. Both of them do business in the state of Washington. Alliant especially, they protect the state of Washington. But that TPA does business in the state of Washington. The other ones were California and Idaho, I
I
think.
think Nevada and Idaho. Yeah.
But those two are walking into this eyes wide open. They understand the environment, the state of Washington. And that was what was really attractive to me, was that they know what they're walking into. They've learned how to navigate that and have success within the landscape that we have here.
And if you would like, I'm happy to do a workshop and invite Alliant back, their team, so that the board can meet the entire team that I've been working with. It's about 8 different leaders within Alliant that are supporting us right now, maybe 8 to 10. So if that's something that the board would like, I'm happy to schedule that and coordinate that.
Well, I understand the due diligence, you know, guidance on an RFP, but I just don't know, I can't see how we do anything better than what we.
I don't know who would either. I don't know who would answer the RFP.
When I started making phone calls, it was, oh, we're very interested, because you get the person who picks up the phone, and then you actually get the owner of the insurance company or the broker calling you back. And it's a lot of questions, but not a lot of answers.
How much work is it involved on your end to do that?
Last year when I pulled the data, it was a couple days work of data pull, past claims. The good news is we have a lot of those reports
Ready.
that come directly from the risk pool, but it was a lot of the questions that I couldn't answer specifically how they were underwritten, because obviously the risk pool underwrites the policies. So it was a lot of phone calls with Chuck and Bryden. What I would do is sign that letter again, because it takes out the middleman. And right now, as a staff of one, just answering daily emails, sometimes can be a challenge because everything has a need. And so it would just be more time, FTE time.
I'm not opposed to an RFP, just mainly for confirmation that what we believe is correct. That we are taking the step in the right direction. I don't necessarily know that we have to, but optically, I think it also looks good that we are doing our due diligence and making sure what's best, but I don't think we're gonna see a difference.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we have enough time to do all that.
We
So
do.
Then why don't we proceed that route? And if you get any interest, then I guess we'll
Okay.
sign a letter so they can get real numbers.
Okay, I will move forward with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John.
Good morning again, commissioners. Time we're a little bit different. Want to get back in front of the board and talk about budget, remind everybody where we're at. So currently, general fund cash balance is about $1.75 million. We did have an increase from last week. The 2026 budget, we have just shy of $61 million of revenue estimated to come in. In 2025, on a cash basis, we saw approximately $63.96 million in revenue. The budget was 62.15.
25, we had 63, and this year so far it's looking like it's going to be about 61.
Yes, so we have budget for 61. Last year's budget was 62.14. Revenues are looking pretty flat. We don't have any significant tax changes. Sales tax for November collections was down. There were some consideration factors associated with that. We'll see what December looks like. Usually that's one of our better months of the year. 2026 expenses are budgeted at $74 million. So we have about a $13 million gap. In 2025 year to date, we've spent approximately $70.14 million. The 2025 budget was $76.93 million. In 2026, we took a lot of one-time budget reductions. We've utilized the opioid fund interest earnings. We've utilized reserves on our internal service funds so IT was a $2 million cut this year. Risk was $300,000. We've cut transfers out to both expo funds and capital reserve over $1 million. We took a look at the budget returns, I like to call it, the unspent budget allocation for the year. We're looking about 6.8 currently and still expect that to drop as 2025 expenditures come in. This is the lowest in 5 years. 2023 was 9.3 million. General fund growth from 2021 to 2026 was 31%. From 2018 to 2026 was 36.6% growth. So what are we doing? What are we looking at? We're looking at a 3 to 5 year look back on budget returns and seeing if we can capitalize on what is unneeded budget capacities. Anything more than 4%. The consistent returns is what we're looking for. In April, I'm hoping to start setting up meetings to review 2027 budget again, April 6th, Monday afternoons. Going through on a budget review with departments again, looking at overtime, services, transfers out to them, and whether else we can look for methodical cuts. We're also looking at generating revenues. Our banked property tax levies, 1%, new construction, things of that nature. We're also looking at voted and non-voted taxes. We're also looking at our real estate holdings and what's available, both tax title and non-tax title parcels, and what's needed to be retained by the county. We're also looking at our investment earnings and how that moves forward in the county itself. Internal services is a big cost. You know, every Monday morning we're up here, we talk about services and we talk about IT, risk, everything of that nature. So we want to make sure that everyone's getting value for those services, but also recognizing the reserves and how we've already taken that one-time cut on those and moving forward with maintaining the balance so we can replace our infrastructure as needed. Just as we talked about a second ago, insurance and rising costs in that area and understanding what that looks like us moving forward. I'm sure many of the departments have noticed that they didn't receive their IT bill yet. We're looking at our billing time periods and when we can and cannot bill that, so we have cash flows. We're also reviewing some of our special revenue funds that directly affect or are impacted based on general fund expenditures. We have one that's called the Law and Justice Fund. We spend approximately $2 million out of that annually, but the incoming revenue is only about 1.7. We are spending fund balance down. We did use part of those funds to renovate the Hall of Justice, but moving forward, trying to make sure that our expenditures are in line with our revenues so that we can continue operations there. We don't have any surprises in the future. We're still spending down the mental health tax, the remaining dollars of that. In 2026, about 1.8 million of that will fund into the general fund. So we still have additional revenues to replace in that area. We're exploring opioid funds and the opportunities for funding within that and seeing if we can create any opportunities in the general fund. As 2026 winds down, ARPA funds will be spent and we'll be losing the interest income on those funds. In 2025, that was about $500,000. I won't be all doom and gloom here.
In 2025, it was $500,000 in interest income or in
interest earnings that were transferred to the general fund. You know, as we did the budget in 2026, there was a lot of one-time fundings we went through. Some of them we took and some of them we didn't. We'll continue to look at those moving forward. There's also some legislation that could help out our revenue side of items. Currently, House Bill 2442, which talks on utility taxes and the veteran and mental health levies that could help us out in some positions, removing the veteran and mental health from our general fund and putting them on their own. That's about $600,000 annually. There is a Senate bill companion, the 6294. They are diverging on the utility tax item. If you're not aware, utility taxes are on our water, sewer, solid waste, things of that nature inside city limits. Currently, the counties are unable to charge that same tax. This bill would change that. We've talked about a budget committee in the past. wanted to have a conversation with the board and see if there's any value that the board sees for this year or for moving forward in next future years. One approach that I do like of it is that we all have our own perspectives on items. And with, you know, additional bodies give additional perspective, giving us the most informed decision we can have, but it can slow down the process.
Yeah. You know, we've had a conversation. I really look at, when I look at this, I see it in two different roads. One is, and we've never really had a good system in place. We've always had them come in and say what they want, and we've said yay or nay, is to try and give them a real close estimate of what we see for revenues, what's coming your way. And I expressed before, maybe we take a historical percentage of general fund and we can assign a number. The other avenue is then working on how do you work within this budget? What are things you can do? And that's kind of where I see departments having committees come in and says, what can we do that? Are there grants out there we can get? Are there things we can do more efficient in here? Are there whatever it is? So when I look at it, I kind of see two different roads, and I feel like the first one is kind of our purview. We got to decide how much money they're going to get, and that's one way to do it. After that, then I think you try and work with the departments to figure out, okay, this is what we kind of see it's going to happen. How do we find ways to work within that? Whether, like I said, whether there's grants or whether we use funds for this, or we transfer interest earnings to general fund, or whatever avenue we pick. I don't know how the others, but that's kind of the way I break it up. I think it's important for them to have a number.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we've talked in the past that, hey, we don't see revenue coming in, but it's, I think it kind of gets real when you can say, okay, this is the number that we're seeing. And it's not going to be a number anybody wants to swallow in these times, but I think it's important that somebody gets a number so they know where they're working from.
So you're saying, as opposed to what they come up with the number, bring it to us, and then we approve it, we preemptively say, this is your number, work within those parameters.
Yeah, we can, and I think we can do that. They can get a number much earlier in the process. I mean, we heard some of that complaint, and it's probably warranted. I wouldn't disagree with some of that. And that number obviously changed. Maybe the state changes, and we also get an influx of revenue. Well, that's good, because you're going to get your same percent, but it's going to be a percent of a bigger pie. So it'll come in, but if they kind of know, hey, you can pick any one, sheriff, you operate on whatever percentage. So we can kind of say, you're going to get this for 27. Now, how are we going to work within that? And I think that's probably where the real work comes in. But I think it's kind of incumbent on us to at least give them a number so they know where they're working from.
So is the number we're going to give them a percentage or a fixed value?
Well, if Sean says we expect 61 million or whatever it is for 2027, that's pretty easy. You can just take the percentage of that and say, on our projections right now, and we'll update this as the year goes along, it's looking like in 2027, this is what's available for the sheriff. This is what's available for the auditor.
Okay. So as those projections are based on what, pie in the sky, or where, how do you come up with those projections?
Well, a lot of those are going to be driven by our levy tax,
Okay.
as well as our sales tax. That's about half of our revenue right there. Outside of that, you know, each independent department's going to have their revenue generations. The courts are going to be very different from, say, the treasurer's office or any of that nature. You know, as we talked this morning with Carolyn, those are going to be driven off of licensing and recording fees at that point.
Well, and you mentioned the sheriff's office. Sean and I sat down and looked, and the sheriff's budget over the last 10 years has increased millions and millions of dollars. So when I saw that, I also think that it's something for us to look at for the ones that have increased that amount. Why? What has caused that increase?
Yeah.
And is it sustainable? You know what I mean? Obviously it's
Well,
not, but
the budgets increase, has their expenses increased? Because there are some departments, and I'm not picking on anybody, because if they have it available, some will, I'll say pad, but some might take that the wrong way. They'll pad their budget with some positions that may not fill, so it's there.
yeah.
And I agree with you. We need to look through it, and we've tried to, I mean, that was kind of our charge to Kathy. Let's try and get to the point where we're seeing actual
Yeah.
numbers, and that's why you've seen that decrease. But yeah, I agree with you. There's still some of that needs to take place.
So as we look at our budgeted difference of, 13 million in 2026, as the mental health tax and other ones roll off, will be closer to 15, 17. We will want to look at first at that budget return annually and make that on a department level rollback. And then we look at everything from there on out. So we have true actuals over the last however many handful of years we look at. But I don't think you're going to get there just by cutting alone. I think we're going to need to look at every opportunity we have to backfill as well.
Well, and take the sheriffs into your comment just now. We can shift that liability. For example, the law and justice tax, that money would go straight to fund the sheriff, and then that doesn't have to come out of the general fund to fund the sheriff's department, in the areas that it is. And that particular tax, the municipalities in our area have voted on it and have passed it. I want to say Battleground passed with like almost 70% on that particular tax. And we can put it to the voters and say, hey, here's a tax. And when we're talking about funding our first responders and our deputies and our police officers, the citizens want to support, they support that type of initiative. And I think shifting that liability to that type of a revenue source, if it's possible to do, and if the citizens go for it, those are the kind of things that we need to be looking at, because it's less strain on the general fund.
Yeah, as we look at the general fund's overall makeup, the majority of it's going to be public safety. And public safety can mean a lot of different things. It can be sheriff,
yeah.
corrections, the court system, everything of that nature.
Probably over half, for sure.
Almost 3/4, yeah.
Yeah.
And so as we look at if we need to do reductions in the future, that's the main impact, and that's a hard impact to fill.
Okay. Have you you have names for your committee, and how where are we at with that?
So we have a few volunteers, different varieties within the county, treasurers, public works, HR, which all give different points of view, which I think are great. But I wasn't, as Commissioner Dahl said, maybe it's more departmental level at that point.
In my personal view, that would be, I think they'd have more, because I don't like to be jaded, but I've listened to them in the audience, and when I threw out some numbers to deal, I never got any suggestions, well, why don't we do this? What I got was, you could be sued for doing this to us, or you could this. It was never any, Carolyn, we work in a real silo, and they all take care of their silo, and I'm not saying that as a complaint. I'm saying that as a fact. That's the way it works. And so if I can tell this silo, this is what you're looking like, I think they'll be much more effective in what we can do within our system. It doesn't mean we can't see some things and make adjustments and say, well, we think because of this, we're going to sign a little bit more over here and less over here. We still have, budget purview is really the major function of us three up here, and we have that ability. So I'm just trying to give us a reasonable starting point to start with, and then try to figure it out from there. And that's where I think the committees come in, is how do we figure out how we're gonna get to where we need to go.
Well, and I like that because in a scenario like that, we can keep it fluid as we're moving along. If
Right,
budget amendments
exactly.
needed, we make a budget amendment.
Right,
As we go
exactly.
along and evaluating what's taking place.
If we have a large.
Then if a
one-time
tax
funding-
comes in, we know that changes some of the
Mhm.
dynamics and we can make those adjustments. Just from listening to them, I think we need to give them a number much earlier, give them some idea much earlier.
And so that's part of the reason why mentioned April 6th being the first one, coming back in and re-talking to the board. It gives us time to get some data sets together, look at what 2025 actuals are going to actually be, get that in there, get some percentages out and start that conversation. If the board then determines after we go through that process that it wants to explore additional revenues, possibly a voted one can be on a primary ballot at that point, as primary ballots would be the time period for any sales or use taxes for the first of 27.
Well, I'm wondering if we, in the general course of events here, the commissioners, we are responsible negotiating union contracts, for example.
Right.
And so a union contract gets set and there's fixed costs in there, which are right out of the general fund to pay salaries. And as those costs go up for each one of the unions, then those departments that are responsible for that, if we have fixed their budget and not given allowances for those benefits that are going to the union, haven't we created a situation where automatically they've got to start laying people off because the increase is more money for less people, basically?
Well, that situation exists right now, yeah,
I
because
mean, that's pretty much where we're at.
where we're
right?
at, because the expense side is outgrown
Right.
the taxing side, so that's always a problem. I agree with you that it's something that's getting created, but I think it's a joint creation. It's unions and us.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody needs to put some skin in that.
See the reality of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and looking at that, Commissioner Farrell, that's a good point in that, and I mentioned this previously, prior to receiving that ARPA money, the only way that we kept up with that increase was the 1% in the real estate tax and the road shift fund. That was the only way it was kept up with previous to the ARPA funding and then the cancellation of that. So we need to reinstitute that mechanism that at least helps us keep up with whatever those union contracts are as we move forward. Because that one, like the one that we just had, we don't know how that one's gonna end up. And how, I'm trying to figure out, how do you budget for those things? I don't know that you can. I mean,
Well,
I don't, even if we took the 1%,
know
it's
what
not
you
gonna keep
can.
up with our current obligations.
well, I would tell you, you guys, I think, have a different view. Government to me is a burden and I want to lessen it.
I agree.
And so the only way to lessen it is you got to cut off the flow. And that may sound harsh, but government is just ever consuming. And I'm not talking about employees. I'm talking about the entity. It's all consuming and it never stops. You hear it in Olympia, for crying out loud. You can bet they're going to come up with some way to force people to do those deals. I mean, we heard, I think from Deborah, when she was talking about the amounts we forgive.
Right.
And on the 751,000 on real estate taxes. Yeah, but those entities that it affects can just add it to the next tax bill. There's always a mechanism to get back what they lost.
Well, try.
Try, yeah.
Just like these recording fees. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, the cost is going up like hell, but the people that are now using it is about 1/10 what it was.
Yeah.
So you got 10 times the fee, and you got 1/10 the usage.
So I know it's painful, but I think government needs to be in check and it's not. That's more of a personal opinion.
And just from a data set perspective, I think it's important to note that the last time the county was net positive on the general fund was 2021. And 2022 was fairly close at $500,000, but from there it's grown year over year. And so it's not the first time it's,
Well,
It's
and that's
just a growing
when
issue.
the tax receipts and stuff just started going flat.
Mhm.
The mortgage rates rose and everything just kind of leveled. Once again, I don't think it's a county problem. I would tell you it's policy problem out of Olympia. It's created this.
The only thing that I would add, I agree. I think we're all lockstep with our view on Olympia and the burden that the government is. I would look at it from a citizen standpoint, managing our finances. If eventually we know we're gonna have to take revenue, I would rather do that incrementally than all one big, huge, giant, chunk at a time, like what happened in Woodland. Holy cow, man, those poor people with the school district levy, the fire district levy, and then they got that back levy put on top of them that we didn't collect. That was a big chunk, that they had to eat all at once. And so that I also think is a variable that we need to consider in knowing that if the revenue sources that we have are what they are, I think that whatever we can do to manage those so that it doesn't hit the citizen's pocketbook, in a bigger bite, so to speak. But yeah, I'm in agreement. Anywhere that we can cut the flow off, we have to cut the flow off, but we also have to provide what we have to provide. So on our end, I think it's a balancing act. I don't know that Olympia looks at it as a balancing act. They just,
No. Yeah, ooh, that's always a tough one for me to swallow. I feel government should live within the constraints of the economic activity. And if we're not producing the economic activity that's given us those increases, that's not on the taxpayers, that's on us.
Some of the benefits of Cowlitz County is we do have some of the lowest tax rates in the entire state for sales tax.
I just saw a county go to 10 or something. Did I hear that right?
Depending on what kind of area you're in, with transportation benefits and other benefit areas, there's over
It
10.
lives close to the county next door, will probably be shopping over there.
that's exactly what happens.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly what happens. They don't shop in that area.
Well, I heard one of my family members telling me they were going over to Rainier because of new sales taxes recently. So I was like, okay, that's what seems to happen.
That's probably, I'm being facetious here. That's probably half the traffic on that bridge.
I was gonna say, we could just get $1 each way for every car
I
going to
know.
the liquor store and to the tobacco shop. over
I
there.
hear you.
Well, yeah, I tell people because of the new precious metals tax in Washington State, go to Costco and buy your gold and silver if you're gonna buy it. Don't pay that tax. And they have better premiums too, but
You can't get a return on that metal as fast if
No.
you are paying sales tax on it.
So you're thinking you'll take some of this information you're gathering from us here and what I'm hearing from you is April, that our first budget amendment would be one to kind of set whatever we want to set in stone, to kind of set in stone.
Well, that's more of a question to you. If we wanted to do a amendment for 26, look towards 27 and make strong adjustments for 27 and get ahead of that. So we have the opportunity to talk to every department that this affects and get clear and concise cuts, or, hear from them and why they cannot.
At this point in time, I'm thinking, I'm focused on how do we fix 27 beyond. It feels like 26 will just disappear on us. Not that they shouldn't want to take stock of what they're doing and start getting themselves set for 27, but that's just,
I
I'm
think
just kind of thinking
The more we
27.
talk about it and the more we prep them for 27, the better off we are. 'Cause don't wait till 27 to get here and then talk to them about it. That's where we're at right now.
it's already February.
Yeah.
I'm looking from I don't want to give you more doom and gloom here, but looking at a cash flow perspective of the general fund, come first 2 months of 27, we may not have cash to pay the bills.
Yeah. I know it. We recognize.
Well, and that's, hopefully we can look at some of our systems and protocol, like for example, everybody pays all of their internal services all in 1 month up front at the beginning of the year, which really puts us in a cash flow crunch, as opposed to paying that sporadically as we go throughout the year so that we're not in a cash flow situation.
Yeah, on the larger ones, we've changed this year already. for IT is the biggest one, to an April, October billing period. So it aligns with the revenues that come in. Unfortunately, for the risk ones, the bill's due in January as well. So we do have to get that out,
Yeah.
fund it and pay the bill. There is some cash balance in there though. So we'll look and see if we can do something different on that for 27, see if we can cash flow that a little bit better.
Yeah, and I wanted to Commissioner Dahl's point. I know he says he didn't want to call it padding, but there are positions that when we budget for those positions and they sit vacant, we're setting cash on the sideline that we no
Yeah.
longer have access to.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make any sense, particularly in the situation that we're in.
Well, and departments aren't stupid. They realize they can have some sit there just in case they need it. I mean, I get it. I don't, but I think that I'm more of a, give me a true figure type thing.
And that's why we're starting to look at, you know, the year over year budget returns that are greater than 4%, 4%, 5%, that makes sense. We want to be under our expenses that are predicted.
Right.
But when we get into the 10, 12 and more than that.
And I
That's
think
not
you
an
have to
issue.
control that if you want to get to a reasonable, if you decide the percentage of budget historical thing is fairly accurate,
Mhm.
to make sure that's fairly accurate, that number has to get reasonable.
Mhm.
Overtime is another one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's all budgeted and locked away. I think that moving forward, I think that really is the value in the opportunity for budget amendments. If there needs to be a budget amendment made, then we make one in real time. Not just, this is where it's always been, so we're just gonna lock that money up.
And with us historically having quarterly budget amendments now, in the last 2 years, I think it gives a lot more opportunity for departments to get in front of the board and ask for that. 4 or 5 years ago, we just did once a year or more ad hoc as needed, they pile up. There wasn't as much of an opportunity, but we can schedule that ahead of time. We haven't scheduled Q1, but as we're looking to 2, 3, and 4, that's pretty easy to put out there. We didn't want to schedule Q1 without kind of going through this with the board first.
Yeah. So Sean, do you think by April, you could figure out some of the, I hate to keep calling it padding because somebody's going to take offense to that, but you could figure out what would be reasonable. So you would have if we decided to kind of put an initial base on percentage of budget, that the percentages would be fairly close and accurate or fair.
I think we'll have better numbers until, we get through the entire audit and everything. We won't have true numbers, but we'll have our best guess for what 25 was. Of course, we have, 24, 23, 22. Those are all hard numbers by now. We know what the budgets were from those periods. We may look also at what was the original budget versus the ending budget.
So Sean, help me understand let's just take overtime as an example. Sheriff puts a lot of overtime in because they may have an event that, they have all hands on deck for 3 days or whatever. If they don't budget for that and that takes place, do we just have a budget amendment to adjust for that?
So it's going to depend on if it's a general fund or a non-general fund. They don't have an ending fund balance to pull from. So that's going to directly pull from the overarching general fund. If there's not an ending fund balance there, there's nothing to pull from. When it comes down to getting the journal entries posted, if there's not budget capacity, my understanding is those entries won't post. Now, when we get into policy, we can do something different there, but yes, they would not post. But as we're in earlier of the year, it's less likely because there's other capacity elsewhere. And we get to Q4, December, things of that nature, it's much tighter capacity in that bucket. And we might not be able to post then. It's not uncommon to have a budget amendment in January, February for the end of 2025 as those year-end expenditures come in and they go, oh, I'm over in this area. Usually we can find a way to help do that within policy, but occasionally there'll need to be an amendment that hits and needs the board's approval on that.
Could you, it's going to regurgitate even saying this, but could you by April also to Commissioner Rader's point, if we put a voter approved deal just for law enforcement on it, not to increase law enforcement, to just help cover what that might bring in and how that would look in the general fund, just so we have that information.
And I'm assuming we're talking about the public safety sales tax.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of together.
What I like about that one also is that it's a sales tax. And anybody passing through Cowlitz County is gonna pay it.
Mhm.
And it's a consumable, it's a consumer tax. And it goes towards our first responders and towards our deputies and that kind of stuff, which, like I said, that one in our area, it seems like Southwest Washington would really support our first responders. And, you know, those taxes have been approved. And I think that for the majority of the people, they would like to be able to decide who's got their hand in their wallet. And if we put it to a vote to the people and they see that it's for those purposes, I think it'll go.
Yeah, and if that's on an August vote or the primary vote, whatever that is, if it doesn't pass, it gives us time to pivot.
Yeah.
So if the people do say no, we have the ability to get back in here and start making changes.
Well, I don't want it to, well, I wouldn't, it would be, I don't want it to see as an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to fund our police and free up some other areas. You know what I'm saying? There's a little bit of difference.
I think the message has
There.
been very clear that expenditures aren't going up,
Right,
they're going to go down.
yeah.
Right now, if the sheriff's office has a SWAT event, does that come out of overtime in his budget?
I would have to clarify with the sheriff's office on how they do that, but if my understanding is if it's not their, assigned shift and they were called out, then it would be going to overtime.
So I'm wondering, instead of trying to budget for that, if that would be, that could fall underneath an emergency fund instead of overtime, scheduled overtime or other overtime monies.
Probably written in there, the contract somewhere, how that all works, huh?
Is SWAT,
I don't
Well, they
know.
might get paid the overtime, but does it have to come out of the general fund?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
is SWAT
Gotcha.
deputy and police, is it made up of all of our service officers? Or is it just the deputies, the sheriff?
It's just the people that
I
are
think
trained for the
I mean,
SWAT,
for the count,
SWAT?
I imagine.
I don't know that.
Probably not on.
I don't know that.
Brad just raised his hand, so he might be able to help us out here.
Good.
Is Brad on there?
Katrina's on there.
Somebody's on.
Somebody's there. There's Brad.
Good morning. You had to get logged in as a panelist. So yeah, the SWAT calls are dependent on, I guess, the time of day and which members of our SWAT team are actually on straight time versus being called in on overtime. And is also comprised of Longview and Kelso officers as well as one Castle Rock officer. So the cities are responsible for their folks' time regardless of where the call out occurs in the county, or sometimes even go out of county to Clark, but that's dependent on each agency. But in our case, it's dependent on number one, which officers respond and whether they're on straight time already. If they're working, then there's no additional expense. But if we have folks come in on overtime, then that would generate overtime. So it's dependent on basically the time of day and the schedule as to who shows up and how long it lasts.
Okay,
Gotcha.
thank you.
Thanks, Brad.
I think we got some direction on how we're
Got
moving
some
forward.
direction? Okay, good.
I'm sure we'll talk again soon before April comes around.
Okay,
Thank you.
Done.
thank you. Anything else, gentlemen?
No.
Okay, we will adjourn. Thank you.